And Jacob in the chat asks,
yes.
What's the delay on announcing Gurriel? Physical not done or trying to trade someone off 40-man instead of DFA? You are ahead of us, Jacob, but that's exactly where we were going with this, because the Diamondbacks do need to clear space for Lourdes Gurriel Jr. And as you alluded to, Jesse was kind of, hypothesizing that this could be due to the Diamondbacks trying to get a trade done right now at this point.
It is very possible. Yeah. I mean, in years past, when the Diamondbacks have needed a 40-man roster spot, frankly, it hasn't always been difficult for them in some ways, just from like a transaction standpoint. They've generally had guys on the 40-man roster that, you could sort of let go. And it was just kind of, not that the D-backs wanted to do that, but at this point, the talent level on this 40-man roster has reached a level where there aren't any clear options that you could just, designate for assignment or, guys who could easily pass through waivers. That's just not really the reality of the situation anymore. You look at guys on the 40-man, I can't really think of anyone who I could easily see the Diamondbacks, being willing to do that. Diego Castillo,
maybe Peter Strzelecki.
Yeah, maybe, but he's kind of I view him as being at least a valuable depth piece, someone that can be in AAA, and you can use him if you need to. The Diamondbacks traded Andrew Chafin for him and seem to like some things about him. So yeah, there aren't really any clear options here for the Diamondbacks to create that spot. And if you're in that situation, then making a trade is kind of the way to try to get around that.
Let's do something that's absolutely terrible, like arbitration, and try to decide which guys that the Diamondbacks might be willing to part ways with in a trade off the 40-man roster that would potentially clear up some of that space. Now, I know he could be a future starting pitcher for this, for this team, but Blake Walston is an interesting prospect as far as trading him. Is that somebody that you would feel comfortable with the Diamondbacks parting ways with if that leads to them adding to their starting rotation now, like a move for a starting pitcher that brings, someone?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect this trade to be all that significant necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, it could be, we give you two guys that you'll put on your 40-man. We take back one guy that we'll put on our 40-man. Maybe the D-backs take back a prospect or two. It's not necessarily a trade that would have a big impact on the major league roster. Although, I mean, I guess it could. I guess it could be part of a larger thing that they're trying to get done.
They've said that they are trying to get that done. And when, again, there's not like a package here outside the guys you don't want to trade. There's not a lot of guys here that you figure could really move the needle on a big trade for a big like starting pitcher or like a Corbin Burns or something like that, right? So
yeah,
I get what you're saying as far as it being a little bit more of a low key move that just kind of makes a roster spot and allows the Diamondbacks to be able to add Lourdes for now. They are still active though, and it's going to be interesting to see how a trade could impact this, because we don't know. We don't know the size of a trade that they could be attempting to pull off, or what assets, what pieces that they could be, adding in there. Right now on their 40-man roster, as far as like outfielders go, they have Jorge Barosa, Dominic Fletcher,
they're not
DFAing
Jorge Barosa.
Oh no, I'm not suggesting that they DFA
I'm not
any
saying
of
you
these
were.
guys.
I'm just saying, like, kind of thinking through all these names. Barosa is a definite no. I mean, Pavin Smith, I guess I could, but the D-backs would want to try to trade Pavin Smith. Yeah. He's a guy who at least has enough value where you wouldn't just want to get rid of him for nothing.
Same
and I
thing
think
with Jace. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say Jace Peterson is the same thing, right? Like I know that he had his rough, start with this team, but there's still value there. And of course, packaging them together for one player, not only could potentially bring in a quality, perhaps reliever, maybe a back end starter even, and then it also, due to the assets the Diamondbacks give up, free up those roster spots so that they can add Lourdes and also maybe add the DH, because that's also something that's pending. If they do add a DH from free agency, there's another roster spot that they have to free up.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's not just that they have to make a spot for Lourdes. They probably have to make a spot for at least one more guy after that, maybe multiple.
Nicholas says Pavin and Jace for Bieber. Who says no? The Cleveland Guardians probably.
Yeah, the Cleveland Guardians probably
they'd probably say no to that.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that I know. Yeah, at least mentions Pavin Smith and Emmanuel Rivera as being guys who don't have clear opportunities for playing time. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys on the 40-man where you don't necessarily project them to have big major league roles, but you still want to have depth at every position, and guys who are in the minors who you could bring up, if you absolutely needed them. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. I mean, maybe this isn't that the D-backs are trying to make a trade. Maybe, I think the deal was pending physical on Sunday, so maybe that hasn't happened yet, or maybe that the physical was done and there were some unexpected findings or whatnot. I guess that's at least an outside possibility. So
maybe Lourdes is just with his family on vacation.
It could be that Lourdes wasn't in the country or whatnot. They just needed some time to figure some things out. So it's not alarming, but I would have expected it to have been announced at this point. So it is interesting.
We're waiting
for sure.
We're waiting is basically what we're saying. We're definitely waiting for this news to break.